Hello everyone, welcome back to Event Advice by CrowdComms. As ever, I am joined by Matt Allen, our CEO. I'm Will Custard, the Product Director, and today we are talking about what to look out for in an event platform. So some real advice we're going to come at this from a sort of enterprise level organization, so big corporate organizations, what to look for in an event platform, what to do to select the right partner to do that from a longer term. So let's start with, let's start with talking about what we mean by enterprise. What is that sort of level of corporate structure?
So enterprise tends to be big business, normally global organizations, but a big business with lots of employees. Actually, it shouldn't really impact what they're looking for, because what we found over the last 3-5 years is that the requirements for a small business to be customizable, to be brandable, to have good integration so that you can look at your buying decisions, to enable inclusivity, accessibility, to drive engagement, all of those things from small to large exist. But a big business is normally what we classify as enterprise.
Good. Let's start with ease of use. Like you say, I mean, it's potentially more important to the lower end, but ease of use of an event technology platform for enterprise level corporations?
If you're doing 1,000 events a year and it isn't easy to use, it's incredibly time consuming.
You're almost not going to use it, are you?
You're not going to use it. So with an enterprise client, when we talk about ease of use, it's ease of use and ease of replication.
Yeah.
So how many of our events follow this branding, and can we quickly say follow that branding for that event? So can we duplicate the design, the infrastructure, the look, the feel, the functionality across 100 of events, and how quickly and effectively can we do that? Now that's twofold, because that's from an organizer perspective. Click those buttons, duplicate that design, map it across that project, invite a new admin to come and view it and work on it. But also from an end user perspective, I'm going to 100 events. Is accessibility easy? Is it familiar to me so I land on it and I know exactly what to expect? Am I having to create multiple passwords? If I delete myself out of that project, am I still in there in the other project? So it's ease of use from an admin and from their users.
On that accessibility point, that's interesting, because obviously if we're talking about enterprise, we're probably talking about much larger numbers of employees.
So you have people with different requirements and needs.
So your percentages of people with neurodiversities or people with disabilities, that's going to be a larger number comparatively in the amount of people that you're employing.
Well, yeah, 15% is the normal figure. If you've got 100 staff, you're expecting 15 of them in an SME that will have additional requirements, or will look at your platform and perceive it in a way that's different. So we want to provide the tools and mechanisms that enable them to have the same experience and benefit from the technology in the same way. If you're dealing with 100,000 people, then you have 15,000 people to consider.
Yeah, that ease of use piece, obviously, also, when we're talking about onboarding into a very large organization, which might have lots of different departments using the event technology that we provide,
yeah,
that onboarding piece is crucial as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and that onboarding piece is two parts. So the initial steps to onboard your technology to a big organization. So that is info security, scalability. So does it meet those requirements so that we can quickly onboard? We're bloody brilliant at that.
Good at that, aren't we?
The second bit is, how can people easily get onto it? So that's single sign-on always with these big organizations. And the final piece is the ease at which they can integrate that suite with their CRM, which is where they're making their business decisions. So if we've got Deloitte partner and potential client, how are we making sure that we can nurture that relationship and push that information back into their CRM of choice? When we talk about those CRMs for enterprise, we are talking Salesforce, we're talking HubSpot, we're talking Dynamics, we're talking Marketo,
potentially.
Yeah.
And I guess from an organizer level within your organization, you are looking at the learning curve to learning a new piece of software, getting on board with it. If it's been passed over to you by another department. So if let's say you've got a US events department and you've got a European events department, the learning curve is important as well, isn't it, to picking up the software?
It's incredibly important, because big organizations, the The bigger an organisation, God, this sounds very negative, but it's the case. Because they're so big, they can actually be quite fragmented. And so different departments could be using different pieces of technology. So when you're trying to onboard, it's about saying, look, you're using it here, it's really working, are we using it somewhere else? You then have to teach it to a new department, a new region, a new territory, and explain the value. So it has to be really easy to kind of understand the value and easy to onboard.
Do we get involved in that, onboarding new departments?
Yeah, we definitely do get involved in it. What tends to happen is we'll have a dedicated team working with them for a period of time, and then we'll be doing training with different regions and territories. And then gradually we end up going back to just being live chat support.
Yeah.
Where it gets complicated with big businesses sometimes, we're talking enterprises, that they can like switch between being agency dependent and then going back in-house, and then going agency dependent and going back in-house. And that tends to happen because when the economy does economy things, shrink and grow and shrink and grow and have geopolitical uncertainty, quite often it is events and marketing that is at the forefront of budgetary changes.
Yeah, you'll bring it back in-house.
So you bring it back in-house, or you'll decide, look, we're actually going to not have an in-house team, we'll do it agency, but we'll change the structure of it. So you have to be able to be pretty agile with the technology and the ability to learn it quickly.
And we see that quite a lot, don't we? That, you know, you start off as a managed client, and actually we've done a lot of work over the last few years of you know, reducing the steepness of that learning curve. And what we're seeing now is people are much quicker to move to a self-service model than a fully managed service, aren't we?
Yeah, they are. I mean, that's SaaS in what we do is about the velocity of that journey. Our tech is easy enough for you to use off the bat with an hour of training, looking at some training videos, maybe asking some questions via live chat. But I still genuinely believe that within a month or two of experience of doing it, you create better outcomes.
On those customization options, obviously, you know, that sort of, you know, the corporate organization looking to replicate their brand across multiple events. You touched on it a minute ago, being able to duplicate those things, being able to bring in what you've done previously, that familiarity for your staff members to think, oh, I'm not in a completely different piece of software this time. That's got to be important.
It's absolutely important. I think it's just as important, like when we're doing it, CrowdComms with 100 staff, you are obsessive about how things look, our fonts, our spacing. If it's used out of context, you are very angry, an angry Will. So it's exactly the same for us. The difference is in the duplication for volume.
Yeah.
You're dealing with thousands of projects. It's got to be easy to do it. That's the difference. So when we talk about customization, it's the replication of that customization that's critical.
Yeah. Again, something you just, you know, you mentioned in the earlier answer, just touched on it, but scalability for an organization which might have globally tens of thousands of employees, scalability, a crucial decision point.
Well, you need to know when you press a button, it works. Sometimes there's nothing you can. We saw the outages in Spain and Portugal this week.
Yeah.
You think to yourself, aren't we lucky because all that information caches offline and you can still print your badge? You still need power. You still need
We
power.
are dependent on electricity
Since
as a
then,
baseline, really.
I've come back, we've chatted to Kieran about battery units to power
Of course, yeah.
a number of kiosks.
Yeah.
And so we can say to people, we'll bring a battery to the event. I mean, that is almost going a little bit overkill for what was a once in a 10-year kind of scenario, but venues do lose power. So
he'd love it if you bought a load of petrol generators and made him ship those all around the world. He'd love that, wouldn't he?
He would love it. Good for the environment, I hear, as well. So yeah, scalability is absolutely crucial, that we can tailor for tens of thousands of people. It's obviously super important if you're dealing with a Google or a Nike or an Amazon who've got hundreds of thousands of employees, or Deloitte, exactly the same. Yeah. We mitigate that in a number of different ways. We have multiple instances of our server infrastructure, and then we have got lots of automation of scalability built into all of those separate instances. We are also looking at doing other things to further solidify that kind of scalability, but in particular scalability of testing,
Yep.
to ensure that we've got the ability to test robustly, to release more robustly with scale. So constantly thinking about that, it's crucial.
Yeah, there's a big stream of work going on around load testing, around turnstiles to, make sure we're not overwhelming people's servers. So we're allowing the infrastructure to catch up if you've got a huge influx of people registering or a huge influx of people logging into the platform, things like that. Okay, so we are hearing quite a lot of chatter in the industry at the moment about virtual coming back a bit. So like hybrid capabilities for an event platform. We are a solution that is just one code base across every device. So presumably that's, again, I keep saying it, but that's another important decision point in which when you're choosing a partner.
I think, let's just address the noise and chatter. In terms of the quotes and revenue for the month that's just gone, and we're at the beginning of May, I think we're the 1st of May. It's bad that I don't know, but we are, I believe.
I think so, yeah.
It's not been reflected in the revenue split that we see in terms of format of events, and we deal with global events.
Yep.
So that's the first thing. What I think is important is that we are ready for change. And if you're building in one platform, and you know that the only difference between a virtual platform and an app is that one you access on your desktop and one you access on your mobile,
It's there
then
already.
you are virtual ready.
Yeah.
You are being in a position where you can change your event to virtual, or you can change your event to hybrid. And the platform isn't the bit that's going to make that tricky.
Yeah.
The venue change, the travel, all of that's complicated. The technology isn't and doesn't have to be. I am still staggered that people build separate platforms for virtual and a separate app. I am still find that boggling. When I talk to peers at businesses and they are saying, oh, this is our approach. And I'm like, how are you getting away with that?
Yeah.
That extra legwork. It makes no sense.
Having to pivot all of a sudden and build a separate mobile app
Yeah.
sounds like madness.
Rather than just saying add live stream to session.
I'm also quite surprised by the amount of people we speak to when they need to pivot quickly are surprised by the fact that it's already ready.
It's done.
It's done, like
Click
literally.
a button.
Like even if you had one person who needed to do it hybrid, it's already
Enable
there.
breakouts and sessions. Push live stream to session. And everything else is built.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we've always taken that,
It's
I think
been
we're
from
too
day one, yeah.
far from the COVID pandemic to reference it too much longer. Blimmin', I'm sick of it. But prior to that moment, we were still building in the same way.
I mean, you have to pay kudos to the original developers who took the decision right at the get-go,
Yeah.
that predate me. The guys that chose to actually, this is going to be one thing.
I don't know if we did it. I mean, I'm not one of those developers, to be clear, but I was obviously leading, involved in it. It's much better with you doing it, by the way. I don't know if we did it deliberately.
Happy accident.
I think it was a happy accident, yeah.
Well, it was the right thing to do, even back then, responsive sites and making sure you're just doing things once. It was the right decision, and it's just good. It's a lovely foundation to
It was
build on.
dictated by the choice of code. The developers we had with the skill set we had to work in the code base that we had dictated what we built.
And I guess we were mobile first. So if you've started with a virtual desktop event scenario, that's a lot harder to then build it as an event app. We started from the app side, mobile first, and then it's easier to go.
Yeah, but particularly for like it was dictated by the clients. We had lots of medical clients, and you turn up at these events and it'd be, doctors never retire. So you'd be saying, here's your app. I don't actually want to use the app. Okay, well, if you just click that link on your desktop, have you got your laptop? Would you be comfortable watching sessions, participating in sessions like that? Okay, so let me just show you. Just click that button. That's where you can ask a question. That's how you participate in polling. Yeah. And that's where you take the notes about the sessions. And if you click that button at the end, you'll send you all that information back to your email. They were much more comfortable with that. So it was built from the perspective, as we have done forever, of providing a solution to a problem.
Yeah. Accessibility. Age is one of those factors in accessibility, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so another really important one, security features.
Yeah.
Take me through, protecting event data, participant privacy, dedicated infrastructures sometimes that we do, enterprise level stuff.
So security at an event level is obviously paramount. We are dealing with big organizations. Data is important irrespective of size of organization, just to be absolutely clear on that.
Yeah.
But when you're dealing with a big organization or a big event, there is more scrutiny around that data. So someone like Marks and Spencer's, or Co-op, you hear in the news at the moment, having issues around kind of technology and data. There's huge exposure on it because they're big organizations. If a small independent shop has it, then it's going to be slightly different. It won't be heard about. So that's not making it better or worse, but the ramifications.
It's less of a target, right?
Less of a target.
Yeah.
That's the key bit. So with big organizations, we have an absolute responsibility to protect their data. A lot of that comes with guiding them or working collaboratively to assess the risk and assess what you put on there, and to be mindful of the fact that, you if you don't need something, don't put it on there. If you don't need to ask for something, don't ask for it. Keep it to what is required for your technology. That's where single sign-on comes in, isn't it?
Yeah.
Using the credentials of their organisation so that you just click that button. It's not requiring us to have that email address and for them to go through that process. It's just pulling through from their credentials.
And we have dedicated staff, obviously. We will talk to all of your, when we're going through compliance and IT, and we will reassure and talk to and make sure we are ticking all the boxes for all the different departments you need.
We have a dedicated team.
Yeah.
I don't know of a business our size that has the level of expertise around info security that we do, because we've made it an absolute priority because of the time that we've grown and developed in. So that's important because we've got the expertise, but it's also really important because you've got access to those expertise. Mm. If you need to get the head of our info security on, then you have her, and she's bloody brilliant. Yeah. And she'll respond quickly, and she'll give you the information you need. And that peace of mind, that service is what is required at enterprise level.
So talking about, getting through compliance, being part of these larger organizations, the existing systems that they've already got, they do not change those very often, do they? So making sure that we're integrating with the right systems, I'm going to repeat myself over and over again, it's crucial.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have to be able to integrate with a solution that they're using to make their day-to-day decisions. Our responsibility and the objective of using our technology is that it can do the nurturing of that process, or it can facilitate the conversations, it can encourage the content and the digestion of content better than they can do in their CRM. We then have to make sure that we do get that information from for ease and back to for reward.
At this level, let's talk about the kind of one event platform scenario that, we talk to people a lot, and they don't really want to have multiple systems doing slightly different things. They don't want someone doing the mobile event app. They don't want someone doing the virtual event app. They don't want someone doing the data. They don't want all of those systems to be managed by the events team. Do we hear that a lot?
Yeah, I hear it all the time. It's interesting. There are now, what you used to hear is people advocating integrations across multiple systems, like choose the best here, the best there, the best there, the best there. I think what we're now hearing more is about making sure that we integrate with primary decision-making software.
Yep.
Okay. Now, people are now getting braver to say, I've gone down a route of piecing together 5 pieces of technology, and it's making life harder for the users.
Yep.
It's making life harder for us and harder for the users. All of the technologists, the organizations like ourselves, we're not arrogant enough to believe that we do everything perfectly. That's impossible. It's 4 million plus lines of code and incredibly complex features, and we can't be the best at everything. We can have areas where we really are strong, and then we've got to make sure that there is as little compromise. And I know that's not what you guys want to hear, that there's compromise in technology, but there's going to be. But there's as little compromise as possible with the piece of technology you're using. The benefit of doing so is that familiarity across the suite. So if you're using attendee tracking, lead tracking, if you're using the engagement, the polling, the Q&A, if you're using registration, when you're on site using the app, if you're doing a webinar, it does just all make sense because it's all built in the same place, following the same design principles, with the same communication, following the same login from your own systems. We're not having to rely on multiple APIs moving data from different systems, which has risk associated with it. So you've got the risk of APIs not operating and working. And I hate to say it, but people change their software and their API, and it causes us grief all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
When we're managing integrations, we have to test them all at the end of each month because they never notify us of changing. So you have to go and look at the website of the company you're integrated with. You have to look at their most recent release. You then have to go and test your system to make sure it's receiving the information the same way. It's a ball ache, and that's a risk. So we're seeing more and more people wanting to keep it all in one place.
The benefits outweigh the compromise. And the compromise,
100%.
I believe the compromise for the section of that event, software that we cover. So registration, badging, event app, virtual data, integrations.
Yep.
That big piece are, the compromise is getting less and less and less and less. So
I mean, without being too braggy, I think it's almost not there.
There's not a lot of compromise, is there? Yeah. It's minimal compromise. And if there is compromise to be had, we are always open to a conversation, particularly, well, it sounds bad to say particularly at enterprise level, but when you're talking about this many employees and this many events and,
We're a relatively small business. If a big enterprise client who's on a multi-year contract says to us, this is really important to us, then the reality is we listen.
Yeah, absolutely. And we want to listen.
And we react
It's not
to
like
it.
we are doing it because we feel like we have to.
What you also find is quite often big businesses will drive change, and then smaller businesses, because they invest in the intelligence, and then the smaller businesses follow that best practice. So the big businesses, the big enterprises, they tend to ask for the same thing, don't they? Every single time.
Yeah.
Very similar when you're dealing with a Deloitte or a Salesforce or Google. It's the same language and things that they're interested in and looking for and demanding. If we get those things right, you find that when you go to mid-market and then you go down to the SMEs, it tends to just happen.
Well, it's like your post this morning on LinkedIn, I know that was more about ethics, but we don't just say yes for the sake of it. We do, do a bit of a cost benefit analysis. Is this going to benefit everyone? Is there a really nice trickle down effect? Is everyone going to love this feature? Yes, you really need it. Let's prioritize it on the roadmap and build it.
Ethical decisions made with integrity don't always mean good decisions. But if we have the right people who are focusing on quality and you focus on being ethical and operating with integrity, then I think you overwhelmingly will make good decisions.
Okay. So why is one platform the right answer? I think you covered quite a lot of it in your previous answers, but why is one platform right?
One platform is often the right answer. It's not always. Sometimes it just isn't. But is often the right option because of ease of use, ease of onboarding, from a data security and integrations perspective, and a UX perspective for admins and end users.
Cost effective?
Yeah, not always, but I think in the majority of cases, it's going to be more cost effective than having to use multiple pieces of software.
Particularly if you take in time into account, I suppose, like people's time.
In terms of productivity, 100%. But I think in terms of cost, more often than not as well.
Yeah. Centralized data, security.
Yeah.
So it's making sure that, like you say, those APIs, you're not talking about your data moving between 5 different things and then going into your CRM at the end of it. It's actually just all in one place. It's all really secure. Then it's just one integration that we can make seamless, perfect. In goes your data.
Yeah.
Then you can do your business insight off the back of it. Wonderful. I think we've covered quite a lot for the enterprise, corporate, and all the rest of the market, to be honest, and making sure that you guys are making the right decision for you to whether you need to use one platform or whether you need to maybe use a couple or a few more than that. Okay, so if you need to ask any questions about enterprise, we have dedicated teams. And just basically anyone who wants to talk about our technology, look at the roadmap, think about whether those features already exist for an all-in-one platform to actually come and work with CrowdComms. Our doors are always open, obviously. But for now, please remember to like and subscribe down below if you enjoyed this content. But for now, we will see you next time.
Clap.